All right, Thrive Nation, on today's show, we are joined by my son, Aubrey Napoleon Hill Clark. Sir, how are you?
Good.
Hey, on today's show, we're interviewing a guy who built $27 million businesses before the age of 35. He built 27 multi-million-dollar companies before the age of 35. In your mind, is that impressive?
Yes.
Do you want to guess what his? I want you to guess what his name is. Okay, so you take a guess. If you get his name right, you win $1. If you get his name wrong, you get tasered with a police-grade taser. So go ahead and take a guess. What is his first name? What is today's guest's first name?
Ritchie.
Ritchie? Last name is Ritchie. That's correct. What is his first name?
No.
All right. Well, it's taser time. Guess again. What is his first name? Take a guess. Make it happen. Take a guess.
Carl.
No. So I'm going to lower the setting down a little bit lower so it just should make us a small burn. First name. Take a guess.
Steven.
No. Let me give you an example. Let me make it easier for you, okay? It is a common name. That's my first tip. It's a common name.
Gerald.
Nope. You only get 17 more guesses. Look, dude, I'm running out of taser juice. You gotta get it right here, okay? I'm running out of taser juice.
Jason.
Oh, almost. One more.
John.
Nope. Keep going. Hammer that J sound.
Jack.
Nope.
Gerald.
Nope.
Jonathan.
Nope.
Janjin.
What? Is that even a real thing?
Janitor.
No. Come on. Why don't you try? Running out of time.
Jackson.
Nope. Today's guest, his name is James Ritchie. James Ritchie. James W. Ritchie teaches us how he built 27 multi-million-dollar companies before the age of 35. This, my friend, is an incredible show. On today's show, we are interviewing a man who, before the age of 35, grew 26 multi-million-dollar companies.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes. Thrive Nation, we have an incredible guest today. On today's show, we have a man who's the founder of Ritchie Enterprises. It's a family limited partnership formed in 1973. And this guy has built a business to the point where I believe that the cap value of the business was over $1 billion. James Ritchie, welcome onto the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
Good, thank you.
Okay, so you've had a lot of success. Obviously, at the age of 35, you've achieved the dream. But tell us about what was life like for you growing up. Maybe take us to the very bottom or the very beginning.
Well, that's a great story because I was raised on I had polio when I was a year old, so I've had a bad leg all my life. So I wanted to be coddled and pampered, but my mom and dad didn't let me do that, and we had a pretty large poultry farm and the other entrepreneurial enterprises. We had a little feed mill and a motel and a paper route and the egg route and the chicken hatchery, and so they were always trying to add on new things and be new things, but that meant we had to go work 7 days a week. We got enough time off on Sunday to go to church, but we had a lot of work to do, and I was taught to work early, and that really what got me started.
So, what time did you? How old were you when you started Ritchie Enterprises? Like, what age in your life did you start the business?
Well, when we started that in theory, I don't know if we legally started then. We started that in theory when we got married in 1966. We made a decision that we were going to share what we had with whatever we could build. We would share it with our family, our children. And so we created this family limited partnership where as each child was born, we had 8 of them. They each became a limited partner in the company. And so started 66 in theory and probably legally sometimes in the early 70s when they probably set it up properly.
Now, my understanding is that Ritchie Enterprises had a Chevrolet dealership, hotels, restaurants, all these things included. What was the first business you started? What was the first thing? Was it a restaurant? Was it a taco stand? Was it a hotel? What was it?
No, we started with very little. We started a feed mill, a feed processing plant in Heber Valley. We had one. My dad had one, an old one, and we just did it mostly for our chickens. But then we started to expand and to provide dairy feed for some dairy herds. And I saw a need. We had 3 of those kind of complexes in the valley and about 60 dairy herds. And so I said, maybe if we build a new modern plant, we could probably capitalize on that business. And so when I got out of college, we applied for an SBA loan, and we got the loan. And my dad offered me an acre of ground that he had to use as my percentage to input into it, and that got us started. We had a feed mill and a little store, a farm store, and then we put a Sears catalog store in it, and that was how we started, with a very, very limited, no cash really of our own, SBA loan and a donated acre of land. So
now, for the listeners out there who are not familiar with the SBA, it's an organization I have a pretty good relationship with. I was the SBA Entrepreneur of the Year for the state of Oklahoma back in 2007. And a lot of people don't know what the SBA stands for. It stands for Small Business Administration. Could you explain for the listeners out there who aren't familiar with the power of SBA loans and why they exist?
Well, yes, I don't have any current information really. I've never used them since, but it sure was a way to get me started. They got me started, and I had them on the books until we finally sold that enterprise. But they without them, I couldn't have done what I did. It was a great way to start.
Now, when you got the SBA loan, you got out of college. What time did you typically start your workday? Walk us through how you organized the first 4 hours of every day during that startup phase. Were you getting into work at 9 and taking a 1-hour lunch and leaving at 4:30? I mean, were you working 7 days a week? Were you getting up at 5 in the morning? What did your schedule look like?
I grew up on this, like I told you, on this poultry farm and a paper route. We had 1,000 newspapers to deliver before we went to work every day. So my world started at 5 o'clock as a kid, and it never quit. I still have a 5 to 5:30 arousing time this morning. I mean, it's just when the world wakes up, and I discovered is part of the formula for success is to get up early and work hard is the formula for success that both my father and mother and my mission president taught me a long time ago. That you know, if you want to start at 9 o'clock, you know you're going to be the last one in the chute. So
now, what do you
started
do
early every day?
What do you do, James, during those first 4 hours when you get up at 5? What are you doing? Are you going out and playing dodgeball? Are you looking at your calendar? Are you writing something down? Because I think a lot of people want to get up, and they're like, "What am I supposed to do even when I wake up that early?"
Well, and when you're in the sales world, and that's what we were, whether we have a Chevrolet dealership or an International Harvester dealership or a motel or restaurants, whatever it is, or a Sears catalog store or a tire store, some restaurants, some motels, some development, you plan. I mean, you're getting ahead of the game. You're getting up early. We used to, those years when I was really struggling and to keep my finances going, to expand all this stuff, I was up by 4 o'clock every day in planning and then meeting with the sales guys by 6 and making sure we're organized for the day and what we're going to get done. And then you plan your day and you put it on a daily planning schedule, and you make all the important phone calls and send out all the important mail you got to send out. So, and then you organize for the day. What am I going to do now till 9 o'clock tonight to make sure that I can stay ahead of this game and keep my financial world alive as I'm trying to expand it.
Now you when you get up early, do you make an actual to-do list, like a printed to-do list, even maybe today?
Yes. In fact, let me just quickly tell you, after we had retired and been retired for 11 years, I'd met a man in California named Hiram Smith, and he was the founder of the Franklin Quest and now FranklinCovey, and we became good friends and associates. And later, when I finished our mission in Virginia in 1989, we came out of retirement and helped him build that company. And it was the Franklin Quest Company, and it taught 6 million corporate executives how to get out of bed and make a daily plan. And I was in charge of the sales and training for the whole company, for the worldwide company. And,
wow.
And so we taught the world how to make a plan every day and make a daily prioritized task list. And golly, and we had day planners, and we did it. And when we did it, we found out we're much more efficient. And when you do it, you're going to get ahead of the game. You're going to be ahead of your competition. So, yes, I did that every day. Still do it.
Now, where do most people get it wrong as it relates to planning their day or making their to-do lists?
Where do they get it wrong?
Yeah.
They get it wrong by knowing that those people that are going to be their competition are doing it right. They are making plans, and they're prioritizing, and they're making sure that the things that need to be done today, that have to be done today, get done today. And if they do, then your competition and your customers and your people that work for you and work with you, they all trust you because they see that you're on top of the game. And if you're on top of the game, then the people on top usually win.
You know, I am not Mormon, but I have found that I love hiring Mormons. We have a lot. Jared, as you know, we keep hiring more and more Mormons in the office. And so my only way that I know Mormons is through hiring them. And I can say so far, after hiring dozens and dozens of Mormons, I've never had a Mormon who's consistently late so far. Not saying that Mormons as a whole, nobody ever's late, but I've yet to hire a Mormon that's ever been late consistently. And I've never had to fire a Mormon. They're always the first one there, the last one out. Sir, you were teaching a class at BYU in Hawaii when Jared Johnson, the founder of Platinum Pest, you were a student there. What role does your faith as a Mormon play into your work ethic, or does it play into it?
Oh, it's the foundation. It really is. I mean, the fact that we have a belief that we're here on earth for 70 years and hopefully more. And in that time, we're planning and preparing our life. We're knowing that we want to have an eternal life with our family, and we're here on this earth to learn how to handle it and how to manage it and how to solve problems and how to handle adversity. And in the process of each of those, we become something. We have to have a problem to solve to learn how to grow. And to learn how to grow, we have to have struggles. And we believe in becoming temporally self-reliant, spiritually self-reliant, physically self-reliant. And each of those causes us to say, okay, what do we do today to make sure we create that balance in our life and we create that independence that we need to become if we're really going to learn how to manage this life and teach our family how to do it as we prepare to become a person on the other side that's going to someday live forever in the presence of God and be happy. We got to become kind of like him. And if we don't do that, we'll always wonder why we didn't take advantage of it.
Well, with your mindset, I could see how it's kind of hard to lose. But I want to ask you, where was the low point? I mean, what was the hardest part in growing the vast Ritchie empire? Was there a low point for you where you thought, this right here, my friend, this is not good? What was the low point for you?
So the lowest point financially that I had was in 1970 when I got appointed as a Chevrolet dealer, and so I was prepared, and I had a building that I had, which made me push to go get the dealership, and I applied for it. It took a year to get it because I'd never sold a car in my life, so I had no real background of history, so I get a building, and I get the process, I get the franchise, and I get the parts department, the sales department, the service department all set up, and then wouldn't you know it, that the day before my first car was shipped out of Detroit, the United Auto Workers went on strike. And they didn't go on, they struck General Motors, and General Motors then went on, couldn't produce anything, stopped, and it was supposed to last for a couple of weeks. It lasted for 5.5 months. And so I was 5.5 months with no inventory, nothing to sell, a full staff of people, limited income. I mean, borrowed every dime I had to get this thing going. And now I'm trying to keep alive. And it was really those days when we finally got the first car, we were upside down so far financially that I don't know if I'd ever make it, but I said we got to make it. Went to the bankers and arranged to have them help me, and we spent the next 2.5 years digging that thing out of that mess and getting myself financially on top of the world. And we did. We won, and I learned more from that tough time, spending 16-hour days to try to figure out how to. They said we'd sell 100 cars a year in the Heber Valley. I sold 400 cars a year because we had to. We had to have that kind of gross capital coming in to make sure we could meet the payroll, to meet the overdrafts, and we finally dug ourselves out of that. But I learned that you can do anything in life if you really have to do it. But you got to spend the time to do it and have a plan.
Do you believe in working 6 days a week, 7 days a week, 5 days a week? What's your worldview on work, the work schedule?
All my life, when I was working building those 26 businesses, I was 6 days a week. We have the Sabbath day that we try to live differently. When you're raised on a farm, you still got to gather the eggs and feed the chickens, but you try to do the minimum amount you can on that. But other than that, the rest of my work life was always dedicated. 6 days I worked really hard, and I had to. I'll just say this so quickly. I need to repent of that a little bit because I also had 8 children. Thank goodness my wife was really, really good at doing that part of the world and compensated for my lack of attention, which I later repented of and became a better dad and husband. But I would have probably said I need to work a little less in those early years and spend more time developing my family. Luckily, we worked out. They all turned out good kids and graduated from college and missions and the whole bit. But I was lucky because I had married well.
Okay, so you married well. So tip number 1, marry the right person. Marry well. It's tip 1. Tip number 2, I'm making sure I'm getting this. Tip number 2, make a to-do list every day. Am I tracking with you? Make a to-do list every day?
Yes.
And then work 6 days if you have to. That seems like a good tip. Now, you've built successful restaurants. What kind of restaurants and how many restaurants?
Well, yeah, I won't take any credit for those restaurants. I was in three of them that I had a part ownership in, but I had a partner. My success in life was really based on finding racehorses, people who are really good at something, and teaming up with them and helping them create that enterprise. So we had some restaurants, but I had a missionary buddy, a friend who became a guru in the food business, and I teamed up with him, and we built and managed a few restaurants, but he did all the technical stuff. I was just a financial helper on those.
Where do people get it wrong?
But again, I'll say, go ahead.
Where do people get it wrong with restaurants? I mean, where do you see people getting it wrong? I mean, I know you had a partner, but I mean, you've probably seen people who've asked you for help, in your years of retiring or as a professor teaching, where someone says, hey, I own a restaurant. My restaurant, I'm kind of stuck in it. I work in the restaurant all day, every day. What advice would you have for somebody out there who owns a restaurant that maybe is struggling to get out of the daily operation? It's very profitable, it's successful, but they want to get out of the day-to-day of being there personally, 6 days a week and make it so that they can actually have a little bit of time freedom and financial freedom.
Well, again, don't get in it without having the right kind of people to be your partners and work with, and people who know what franchise and what operation and what the rules of the game are and how to put food out in 3 minutes, et cetera. You gotta just have that talent and I teamed up with the guy that became in fact, we wrote an article about him one time. He became the best fry cook in the business. And then he went on to build an empire out of that food business. And so I take no credit for being a food man, but I take great credit for identifying the right kind of partners to have them who know how to make that happen. But that wasn't my expertise, was not food. So.
Well, I want to allow Jared to ask any question that he has. He was a student of yours back in the day, and he's still a student of yours today. And I'd like so Jared, what questions would you have for Mr. James Ritchie?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mr. Ritchie, you had control of 26 businesses by the age of 35. Incredible feat. You've always been known for getting things done. I'm sure there were some sacrifices that you had to make along the way, you and your wife. What are some of those sacrifices? We talk a lot about delayed gratification. Now, did you, once you built that first business, you go out and buy a big house? Did you furnish it? What were some sacrifices that you had to make in order to accomplish your goals, you and your wife?
That's a great question, and the one I love to answer, because it really began with having reading The Richest Man in Babylon, the little paper book by George Clayson, which taught you the principles of financing, and pay yourself first, and part of what you earn is yours to keep. Those are just two of his principles, but we grew up believing in those. We had a mission president who taught me the formula for success, who said you got to get up early, and you got to work hard, you got to get your education, you got to find your oil, meaning the J. Paul Getty form. You got to find what you're good at, you develop your talent, and then make your mark with it. Make your mark. You got to become really good at something, and then give back. You got to be able to give back. And so we live by that. We live by the formula. We live by George Clayson's book. I married well, and we made a decision. We were going to build our little world and not have big fancy homes and big fancy stuff, and we'd go without stuff until we could afford to pay cash for it without touching our investment money. So we really worked. So those 11 years were really years of sacrifice. For my wife, we lived in a very small little starter home, and she raised those bunch of kids in that place. And we did that until we could afford to go build our dream home with cash without having to go into debt. And so we just really avoided debt, other than the business debt. We had a lot of business debt, but we never had any personal debt. We never had a credit card we couldn't pay off on the end of the month. And we just lived without those fancy things until we could afford to do it after when we became independent and we had enough to go around, we knew we could live the rest of our life. Then we began to splurge on some of the things that we could do without jeopardizing our future or having to have the nice stuff up front.
Do you live in Hawaii now, sir?
No, I'm a Heber, Utah boy. 5 generations lived in this valley. We spent 3 years in Hawaii at BYU. Loved it, but we live in Utah.
And so Utah's your home?
Yes, we spent 4 years in Africa. We spent several years in New Zealand and 3 years in Hawaii and 4 years in Virginia and 8 years in California. But the Heber, Utah is our base. We keep coming home to Utah.
Where does our culture get it wrong? I mean, if you think about the stats, America has 330 million people in it right now, 330 million Americans. And the SBA, the Small Business Administration, is saying right now you have 16 million people who are checking the box on their taxes saying they're self-employed. So you've got roughly 5% of our population is self-employed. And Forbes says that 9 out of 10 startups fail. So where are most people getting it wrong most of the time as it relates to most business decisions?
Well, that's a difficult thing, and it's all individual. But I think that the biggest part is that they either aren't willing to pay the price, meaning they aren't willing to spend the time and energy. But more importantly, I think they find themselves barking up the wrong tree. They spend their time doing things that they may never become good at. They've got to find their oil, as J. Paul Getty said. They got to find their oil. They got to identify their strengths, and then focus on those strengths until you build them into something that you can start becoming better at whatever you're going to do than your competitor. But that's really difficult to do, but very important. That's why the formula: get up early, work hard, get your education. So why do you do those things? So you can find your oil. And why do that? So you can make your mark and become self-reliant. And if you do it for the right reason, with the intent that you're going to help make a better world and give back and build the kingdom some way, then it also makes it a lot of fun. And the goal you have is tremendously worthwhile, because you're doing it not to make you look good, not to become a proud, haughty, arrogant person, but to become someone that you've got something to offer to give back and help other people.
Oh man,
It makes the journey's fun.
you are awesome. I want to have you on every day. I know I can't, but I think you're great. You're like a Jared. You said this guy was good, but I mean,
yeah.
I had no idea we're getting. This is like a
Incredible.
handsome business Yoda is what it is. It's like a handsome business Yoda.
Absolutely.
What's the next question, Jared? You would have for Mr. James Ritchie?
Yeah, so Mr. Ritchie, you obviously built a lot of businesses. You had your hands in a lot of different businesses. Now, what was your motivation behind that? Now, I mean, we'll see a lot of people, they'll build one successful business, drop the mic, and be done. But you seem to keep going and going and going. Is it something that you just really enjoy? Is there a motivating purpose behind it? Were there certain goals that you're trying to reach? Why did you decide to keep going after you've built a couple successful businesses?
I don't, I jokingly say I couldn't spell the word entrepreneur till about 2 years ago, but and that's a joke. But I grew up an entrepreneur. I didn't know that at the time, but my dad, I told you about him. He had the feed mill and the chickens and the motel and things and all the stuff going on. Never got really financially well off big time because he had some big major fires that burned down his major businesses 2 years in a row and just about wiped him out. But he didn't understand the word bankruptcy, so he quit. He never quit and kept going. Well, I just watched that on my whole life. So I just kept seeing, and he just kind of taught me how to look for opportunities, and then all they had to do, if I had the opportunity to do it, I had to find a partner that had to know how to run a tire store, and then I had to help get the money to make it happen and build it. And so each of those businesses, I just look, my expertise, my entrepreneurship was finding opportunities and then finding a way to finance them and get the right people in it that knew how to run them and become their partner and then make sure they got taken care of. And so I wasn't a master at any of those, but I was a master at finding opportunities and finding the right people to partner with and then make them work and make them successful. And that's how and so that was my world. I like I say, I wasn't a food man and I wasn't a motel man, but I owned some and I helped manage them and run them.
Well, you're a beautiful
But
man. You're a handsome man.
partners.
That's the problem. You got too much. We can't relate. He's too handsome. Now, I have a question for you. My final question is: you're a reader, and I have found that people that read lead. People that are the note takers are the money makers. I just find this to be true. So you mentioned The Richest Man in Babylon. What are other books that you would recommend for the listeners out there? And you can just fire off as many as you possibly would care to.
Well, there's so many, but the Og Mandino books, The Greatest Salesman in the World and Greatest Miracle, it's just, those would be my top line. Og Mandino stuff, The Greatest Salesman first, Richest Man in Babylon. But my mission president also taught me that he said, read success stories. And so I've just found myself reading biographies and reading Success Unlimited magazine when I was growing up and get involved. And you can't read Nelson Mandela's story or Gandhi's story or Abraham Lincoln's story or George Washington. Any one of those just inspire you to say, hey, I can do better. I can do more. I've got to say those are the kind of books that I have really been inspired by, are success stories and biographies. A novel once in a while doesn't hurt, but the others are much more motivational and inspiring.
Is there a final tip that you'd like to give all of our listeners out there? If you had a billboard, you could put whatever you want on it. Maybe you could send all of our listeners a text message with one tip. Is there one tip you'd like to share with our 500,000 listeners?
I don't know. I would probably say, again, going back to the 1966 when David B. Hay told me the formula, and I think that tip is a win. Get out of bed early, work really hard, get your education, train. You do that with books, college, whatever. Find what you're good at, develop your talents, do it, then go out and do something good with it, make your mark in life, but do it with the purpose of helping other people. If they'll do those 6 steps, especially with number 6, they'll have a happy life and they'll find their way to make the mark. And when they do, they love life.
Can you repeat those back to us? I'm taking notes here. So step 1, get out of bed early. Is that correct?
Get up early.
Got it. Okay.
2, work hard. 2.
Okay.
3, Get your education.
Get my education. Got it. Okay.
4, find your oil.
Okay.
5, make your mark. 6, give back.
Oh man, that's impressive. You, my friend, are Mr. Wizard. I appreciate you for being on the show. And what are you going to do the rest of the day? Are you going to go start another business here before you wrap up your day, or what's the plan?
We're going to do some family counseling. Several of our families we're meeting with on a business adventure we're into, so we're going to go have an evening with them.
Okay, well, have a great night, my friend. You're a blessing to so many people, and I appreciate you for educating Jared Johnson, who's now the founder of Platinum Pest, and I know he would make you proud.
What you need to do is give me the information how I can find out how to listen to you, what you're doing. So send me some dope on that, will you?
Absolutely. Is this your phone number I called you on?
Yes.
Okay, I will text you a link to where you can just hit play, and then just so that you and all the listeners out there know, we're on a Spotify. They can find us on YouTube. They could find us on the website or iTunes, as well as iHeartRadio. But I'll send you a text so you can just hit play right there. And I appreciate you so much.
Good. Thanks to both of you. Have a great day.
Hey,
Take
thanks,
care,
Mr.
boss.
Ritchie.
And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom! What if you could gain access to download each and every book that I've ever written for free? Well, that'd be terrible, because I don't like you. Okay, we're making a big assumption here. But assuming that you do like me and you like the Thrive Time Show, you can now go to thrivetimeshow.com/free-resources. That's thrivetimeshow.com/free-resources to download each and every book that I've ever written for free. You can download the ebook version of each and every book that I've ever written for free.
Clay, I just want to chime in here real quick. I don't like you or capitalism. I feel like we should all get free stuff.
Well, I am in the process of explaining where you can get free stuff. And you can now also download all the helpful infographics. There's infographics on Firing 101, the perfect hiring system, the principles from Ray Dalio, Internet Marketing 101, the Lead Bin Management System, Managing Humans 101, Logo Creation 101, Why Google Loves WordPress, Time Management 101. We also have an incredible infographic about the importance of calling your leads often, because the average person no longer answers their phone unless they are called multiple times and unless they receive a text from you. We also have the importance of File Nomenclature 101, Sales Lead Conversion 101, and much, much more. And it's all available for you to download for free right now by going to thrivetimeshow.com.
Are you suggesting that I should have to move my body?
Yes.
This is for free. Isn't there a way you could just beam it? I mean, why do I have to move my body?
Because
typing causes me anxiety.
Whatever.
Which is why I would never go to thrivetimeshow.com.
Come on.
/free-resources. I would never go to thrivetimeshow.com /free-resources.
All right, let me clarify. If you have the capacity to move your fingers, go to thrivetimeshow.com /free-resources to download an ebook version of every single Amazon best-selling book I've ever written and all the infographics that have the power to change your life.